It's Thursday, loaded show because we got a lot to go through for love-hate throughout the weekend. We'll also preview Vikings-Rams tonight for Thursday Night Football with our best bets. Of course, Matthew's top players in the matchup as well. Let's jump right into love-hate and start with the running backs this week. And Joe Mixon tops the love list, and Joe Mixon has looked great in a Texans uniform this year. We got to hear from C.J. Stroud on how long he's been watching Joe Mixon have this level of success.
I've been watching Joe for a long time. I think I was in middle school or high school. He was at Oklahoma, and he was a really good player there. So, I've always known him to be a really good player. Played against him last year. He was really good. So, now I'm just glad he's on my team, and been able to, really open up a lot of things for our offense. And I think, we can continue to, use him in a lot of different ways. And, he's going to even make me better. So, I'm just really blessed to have him on the team.
Number one, that makes you feel old.
Yeah.
C.J. Stroud's been watching Joe Mixon, is now teammate since middle school. Number two, Mixon's got the Colts, which is great news, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Colts give up 125 rushing yards per game to running backs. That's third most in the NFL, and he's just getting a massive volume. He's played 3 full games this year, right? Just 3 full games. In those 3 games, he's averaging 25 touches. He has a 12% target share, over 26 fantasy points per game. He's just been an absolute superstar in fantasy football when he's getting the work, and he expects to get the work this Sunday against Indianapolis. By the way, he's also second in red zone rushes per game. He's had at least 5 of them in all of his 3 full games. So very good chance of him to get into the end zone for those of you who like to bet anytime touchdowns. But Joe Mixon is an easy top 5 play for me this week.
Yeah, and the good news is we've already seen him play the Colts, and he had 1 million yards and 50 touchdowns. He absolutely destroyed them, so I don't know why that wouldn't continue. The good thing about Mixon in this offense is that even in Cincinnati, he always excelled when they did zone runs. That's what he is best at. He is one cut, get into the gap. He's not going to be, I don't think he's just a man gap kind of scheme runner, but he's being used to his fullest potential. Bobby Slowick, for maybe to a detriment to the team, loves running the football, so I think this is going to continue. Do you think they change anything on offense, Connor, like this week going forward, or is it just going to be still this run-heavy attack? Because the offense overall isn't really clicking.
No, I don't. I think this is who Bobby Slowick is, and I think this is who the Texans are without Nico Collins.
Yeah,
For a while, we remained hopeful that, hey, all the targets now go to Diggs and Tank Dell, and Schultz has gotten involved a little bit more, but they lean on the run. That's who they are. It's who they want to be, and it works against this Colts team.
Yeah, and I understand C.J. Stroud didn't have a great game fantasy-wise or production-wise last week against the Packers, but they came within a last-second field goal of beating Green Bay on the road. I mean, again, I don't think that game was as much of a disaster for the Texans that everyone seems to think that it was, at least to me. I mean, again, they move the ball. Brandon McManus misses that field goal kick at the very end of the game. I think it's a different story.
Right.
If the Texans get a stop on that final drive,
that'd be
it's a different
6-1,
story.
like, yeah.
Exactly. The Texans are just fine, but more importantly, they are moving the ball on the ground. They give it to Joe Mixon a ton. He should be in a lot of DFS lineups this week as well. You loved running backs against the Colts, especially good running backs that get a lot of work, which is what Joe Mixon is.
Joe Mixon, RB5. Right behind him at RB6 is Kenneth Walker against the Bills. Jay, Buffalo is allowing 160 scrimmage yards per game to running backs this season.
Yeah, you could make the case that rest of the season, Ken Walker is a top 4, top 6 running back. Rest of the way, he's been that good. And the thing with Buffalo is it perhaps hasn't been magnified that much because they keep on winning these games by a lot of points and teams just aren't in run scripts. But if you've been able to run on the Bills, think about what Derrick Henry did to them. Now he's an outlier, but think about how they revived Breece Hall as well a couple of weeks ago. So certainly you can run on Buffalo, and the Seahawks, particularly, we'll see with the health of DK Metcalf, they might need to lean on the run.
Just to give some stats to exactly what you're saying about how, yes, you can run on the Buffalo Bills. In fact, you can do whatever you want with a running back to the Buffalo Bills. They are bottom 3 in the NFL in terms of most receptions, most receiving yards, and most receiving touchdowns allowed to opposing running backs. And I bring that up specifically here, as my phone goes off for some reason.
Television, Matthew.
That every
brain malfunction.
No, you know it's weird. I got a brand new phone, and like you can see it there. Like my volume is down, but for whatever reason, like I don't know what's going on with this. I don't know.
You got another new phone that's better.
I got another new phone that's better in theory. We'll see. Anyway, back to Ken Walker and why we like him so much this week. Good luck to the social team of clipping that off. Look, again, as I mentioned, Bills bottom 3 in terms of most receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns allowed to opposing running backs. 40% of Ken Walker's fantasy points this year have come through the passing game. They're using him on third down a lot. They're using him in the passing game, which is important because obviously Geno Smith and that offense likes to throw a bunch. By the way, we know that Walker gets a ton of work. Running backs that see at least 15 touches against Buffalo so far this year, averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. So Walker mixed practice on Wednesday. It feels like a veteran's rest day. I'm not worried about that, at least not as of yet. So Walker should be good to go and is a top 6 play for me against the Buffalo Bills. I don't understand.
There's a
gotta
button
nuke
on the
it.
left side usually on iPhones, Matthew.
No,
Yeah.
Yep.
hold for silent.
There
Okay,
you
there
go.
we
Oh.
Hold for
go. I
silent.
have to hold it for silent. I
Hold
didn't
for
realize
silent
that.
gets
Yeah, I
through.
thought I just could push it.
No, you gotta hold it.
Kenneth Walker, RB6.
Don't mind me learning technology on TV.
Kareem Hunt comes in as RB11. He's got the plummeting Raiders. Kareem Hunt has taken over this backfield, so much so, Matthew, he's averaging over 17 points per game in his 3 games with Kansas City, off the couch and into fantasy relevance.
Well, not only off the couch, but by the way, he was bad last year.
Right.
Like, I mean,
been bad for a little while now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's shocking how productive he has been, but I guess that's just sort of the magic of Kansas City and Andy Reid. You know, between Juju Smith-Schuster, Kareem Hunt, and now DeAndre Hopkins. Like, this is like the greatest 2017 fantasy football team of all time.
Get the Sean McCoy back.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. Melvin Gordon, where are you at? But in his 3 games, as you see it there on your screen, the 3 games that Kareem Hunt has played with the Chiefs this year, he's the 8th best running back in fantasy on a points per game basis. He's averaging over 17 points per game, and the workload has been there. 52 touches over the past 2 games, including 100% of the Chiefs' running back touches in the red zone. Every starting running back that has faced the Raiders so far this year has scored at least 15 fantasy points. He's a top 12 play for me. Kareem Hunt, again, by the way, we'll see how long it lasts. There might be a window here after this game to try to sell Kareem Hunt because Pacheco is going to come back. Unlike Rashee Rice, Pacheco is going to play again this season, and I feel like we're nearing that window where we're going to see Pacheco again, maybe week 10, 11, something in that range.
Yep. I would worry a bit, though, that Kareem Hunt has looked so good. And I get that, look, he doesn't look like Derrick Henry or anything, but he looks explosive enough for what they need to do. And he looks healthy, and he looks better than he did last year, that I wonder if he's going to still, with Pacheco coming back off the injury, think about guys coming off broken legs, look at how Tony Pollard struggled last year being the workhorse back, whether Kareem Hunt maintains a role in the offense, which will not make him necessarily fantasy relevant, but will diminish Pacheco's value.
There's no question about that. I think Hunt has certainly earned a bigger role until they'll use it. And Andy Reid has liked to use multiple running backs, and to your point, wanting to ease Pacheco back into it, especially given the fact that they want to try to win a 3rd Super Bowl in a row. But I'm just saying, like, there might be a window here to try to get more value out of Hunt than what we think he'll be in the fantasy playoffs, for example.
Others receiving votes here. Hopefully a get-right week for Jordan Mason. He's had a tough 3-week stretch, but he's got the Cowboys, which really helps him here. Javonte Williams against the Panthers. What more needs to be said about that? Panthers' run defense couldn't stop anyone on this desk right now. Jaylen Warren against the Giants. Matthew sneaks in as a top 30 play with Russ under center. More dump-off opportunities for the Steelers' second running back.
So, in Russ's first start last week, he had a season high in touches. He had 14. He played 50% of the snaps in week 7. And it's a great matchup against the Giants, who give up 5.3 yards per carry to opposing running backs. That's second highest in the NFL. Feels like we're still another week away from Christian McCaffrey. I still hold out hope that we're going to see him on Thursday night. But at the moment, it looks like it's going to be Jordan Mason going against that Cowboys rush defense that's 27th in the NFL and has given up the 2nd most rushing touchdowns this year. And then you mentioned Javonte Williams, like you had me at Carolina. 7 of the 8 running backs to see the Panthers so far this year have scored at least 17 fantasy points. Javonte Williams has kind of taken over this backfield. And Sean Payton has realized that, hey, when Bo Nix doesn't throw, good things happen. So whether it's Bo Nix running or Javonte Williams running, like that's the key to the Broncos offense, is just limiting Bo Nix's passing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think in a game where they're favored at home against Carolina, with Bryce Young starting, by the way, we expect maybe there's some turnovers or short drives. So Broncos should be in good field position in this one, and a number of drives that start, on their own 40, their own 50 in Carolina territory. Javonte Williams is a top 20 play for me this week.
Patrick Surtain was back at practice yesterday as well. So if you have Surtain on Deontay Johnson and Bryce Young throwing to other people on the Panthers offense, doesn't seem like an amazing recipe for success. So
we're going to get there with Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
Take one guess which list he's on this week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, Haight is a minus 50,000 favorite there in that head-to-head.
It's just worth noting, just since you brought it up, just real quickly, Surtain has not been, he did practice in full yesterday, but he's not officially been cleared from the concussion protocol.
Yes, but a very good sign that he was out there yesterday. Bo Nix is a 9.5-point favorite over another NFL team, which shows you where the Panthers are at the moment. Now, all of that is about Denver's defense, but still, this should be a situation. It'll be the best game script that Javonte Williams gets all season, you would think.
We kick off the running back hate list with Alvin Kamara, who's got the Chargers. Not only are the Chargers allowing the third fewest fantasy points per game to running backs, but an interesting situation with Kamara. This from Nick Underhill, who does a really good job covering the Saints.
Yeah, he does.
Alvin Kamara said his PT, Dr. Jose Tienda, has been key to keeping him on the field. Even got his broken hand right. Kamara broke it against the Chiefs. A broken hand for a running back.
Feels important. Feels like you need both hands when you're carrying the ball.
Especially when
I'm
you
no
literally
doctor.
are the offense half the time through the pass game and the run game.
He is, but broken hand or no, he's outside my top 20 this week going against the Chargers. As you mentioned, Connor, you mentioned they allow the third fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. They've also given up only 2 touchdowns this entire year to opposing running backs. Just 2. And in fact, in Spencer Rattler's 2 starts, Alvin Kamara is averaging 2.8 yards per touch. Like, he's gotten 31 touches. He has 88 total yards. Like, it's just brutal. The offense just seems to completely ground to a halt under Spencer Rattler. I don't expect it to get much better on the road at the Chargers.
Alvin Kamara has 11 catches since he's broken his hand. How do you do that? How do you catch football 11 times in an NFL game?
Dr. Jose Tienda.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Shout out Dr. Jose Tienda. Not expecting a bunch of success from Kamara in this one.
Yeah, I think he's just you hope that the PPR scammery comes to the fore, and he's a RB2 flex type of guy at this point. They're 7-point dogs against the Chargers, whose defense has been. I don't really understand, Connor, how the Chargers defense has been so good with their personnel, but coaching.
That's coaching.
Khalil Mack's having a really solid year, and I guess that's enough. But yeah, this isn't a favorable matchup at all.
Sometimes it is coaching. I mean, again, I don't think the Commanders have. I mean, the Commanders have a couple of guys on the defensive line that are really good.
Right.
But generally speaking, I don't think the Commanders have anything good defensively, especially linebackers on. And they're like a top 6 defense these days.
They have a puncher's chance
They have
because of the game plans.
100%.
Yeah.
In terms of EPA per play, they're up there in terms of lowest allowed.
They've gotten better the past few weeks.
They absolutely have. No, I get it that they've beaten up on some bad offenses, but still, that's what a good defense should do.
Look what they did to Arizona. That was impressive. Arizona have a solid offense, and the Commanders completely shut them down a few weeks ago.
Even Carolina in junk time. Andy Dalton has been able to move the ball. Yes, they've lost,
they
but they put up 21 points on the Bengals, I think, off the top of my head. They moved the ball against the Bengals, and they couldn't do anything against the Commanders. And so, and by the way, seeing how explosive the Ravens' offense has been, they obviously the Ravens beat the Commanders, but they didn't blow them out of the water.
They didn't embarrass them.
They didn't embarrass them like they have,
everyone.
they have the Buccaneers, they have the Bills. Real teams.
Yep.
So anyway, and again, I'm, because this is my superpower, turning any conversation into one about the Commanders. But I'm just an example of how coaching matters so much.
Yep, definitely.
And so yes, the Bolts are well coached.
Nick Chubb also makes the hate list. Jay, we love the return of a healthy Nick Chubb, but we pretty much hate any running back that goes up against Baltimore. They have the number 1 ranked rush defense. They've allowed a league low 3.1 yards per carry to running backs. It's just basically you don't stand a chance if you're facing their run defense.
Yeah, and also Cleveland, obviously the ecosystem of that offense, even if it gets better without Deshaun Watson, with Jameis Winston, the O-line has really struggled. Yeah. And the thing with the O-line too is that last year it was really banged up. This year, all those guys are back, like Wills, Batonio, Postage, Conklin. They're all playing. It's just that it feels like they've just gotten old at the same time.
It's 2 things, right? They've declined. There's no denying that. The performance has been under their expectations. And number 2, Deshaun Watson runs himself into more sacks than anyone in the league. Yep. So when you have a quarterback with 0 pocket presence, you lose not only your confidence as an offensive lineman, but also the timing of how you're playing in your pass sets. The whole thing is broken there. I don't know if Jameis fixes that, but Watson sunk that entire offense.
I think they'll be able to move the ball just because the Ravens secondary has struggled, right? But listen, the Browns are a 9-point favorite in this game as well, and Chubb played on just 23% of passing plays last week. He had just a 19% route participation. Passing game involvement has never been a big part of Nick Chubb's game. So if you're starting him this week, you're really hoping that he falls into the end zone, which of course is always an opportunity. There's always a chance with that with Nick Chubb, but he's outside my top 30 just given how I think you attack the Ravens defense, which is through the air, the fact that they're big underdogs. I think this is a big Jameis Winston having to throw from behind game, and just that's not going to be a lot of Nick Chubb once the game script gets that way. They're so good against the run.
Yeah, I will say with Chubb, this is obviously a bad matchup, bad week. I do think it's very encouraging that they gave him 10 carries in the first half. last week. And that felt like that was the plan, because then he just had got no work in the second half. But for him to get 10 carries in the first half, like, I thought he was going to get like 6 carries for the game. And the fact that he was able to get that workload bodes well going forward, just not this week.
So Chubb comes in as RB33. Right behind him is Alexander Mattison as RB34. Matthew, he's got the Chiefs. Kansas City is allowing a league-low 14.3 points per game to running backs this season. We saw Jordan Mason unable to get anything going against them. It's hard to believe Alexander Mattison will be able to.
Week 3. Week 3 is the last time a running back got a touchdown against the Chiefs. We're in Week 8. Just to do some, that's 5 weeks,
That's
Jay.
5 full weeks.
Did
That's
that
more
math
than a
in
month.
my head. I don't want to brag, but I literally did that math right here in my head.
That's why you're the best, Matthew.
Thank you,
That's why
Jay.
you're the
I
best.
appreciate it. There you go. Just whatever. You know, I got a lot going on this noggin here as well. In fact, not once this entire year have the Chiefs allowed 70 yards from scrimmage to an opposing running back. Zamir White came back last week, and I don't know that Zamir White is anything you have to be worried about here, but feels like Alexander Mattison is going to be the head of a sort of a 3-headed committee between, you know, him and Zamir White and Amir Abdullah. So just not loving Alexander Mattison. I get that last week the workload was there, but going against the Chiefs, negative game script, also outside my top 30.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.